I'm going to have my hands supinated behind my back, have both of my feet and ankles and hips making 90-degree angles everywhere. And what I'm going to do is just rotate them to the opposite side, back and forth. It's okay if it feels a bit sticky in your hips when you're doing it. Just try to work it out. I do this for about 30 seconds. This just works on mobilizing our hips. What we're going to do is we're going to rotate our hips to one side of our open foot. Make sure that your knee is in line with both of your hips and your chest is facing the knee in front of you. You're going to put your hands on your knee and press down on it. You're then going to press up with your knee against your hands pushing down on it. If you want to make it more intense, you can lean forward a bit. You're going to hold this for 3 seconds, and you're going to do this 5 to 10 times on each side. If at any point you feel a lot of uncomfortable pressure, you can always just slowly exit the position and do the wide hips we just did earlier to this. We are now going to do a downward dog to pike. You can treat this like a dynamic stretch. Just make sure you're easing into your max range of motion and you're resting down in the dog position. Make sure your legs stay straight the entire time you do this and that your knees and hips don't hit the floor at any point. When you're up in the pike position, it's okay if your ankles touch the floor. Just make sure that your ankles are off the ground and you're on your toes when you're down in the dog position. You're going to do this dynamic stretch for 1 minute. We're now going to do a saddle squeeze. You enter this the same way you do a regular saddle, with your hands supinated behind you and your chest pushed out. The difference this time is we're going to be squeezing our glutes when we're doing so. Make sure you maintain the tension the entire time and you're slowly moving into the saddle position. If you can go further with your hips as you push them forwards, you can try to walk your hand towards your ankle, similar to how you would enter a box. But keep in mind, this is only a modification to include your lower spine as well. It's perfectly fine for you just to be at the regular triangle shape there, rather than a box. I hold this for about 30 seconds. We're now going to do a standing pike. For this, we're going to bend at our knees a bit to allow our torso to be able to rest on it. And then we're going to be moving our body from side to side. As you lean from side to side, you can bend your knee and straighten out the opposite leg you're not leaning towards. I like to think of this like I'm dragging my arms on the ground like an elephant trunk. You do this for about 2 minutes. For the wide hurdler, we're going to be sitting down with a straight leg in front of us and pulling back one of our legs with our foot tucked behind our butt. Our knees should be making a 90-degree angle. You want to make sure our chest is aligned with the center of our leg. You can use your sternum to angle it. I'm going to place my hands by my knee. We're not trying to reach out as far as we can. We're trying to push our chest towards the center of our foot in front of us. If you want to make this easier, or if you feel it's too hard and you can't get as far of a lean, use anything around you to elevate your surface, like a foam roller or books. Elevation is always the best way to compensate for the range of motion. That way you're not damaging your structures or causing imbalances. I hold this for 90 seconds on each leg. For the split squat, we're going to be entering a long lunge position and making sure our chest stays up and tall and our hips stay in line. Make sure they don't open. As you slowly lower yourself down, make sure that your hamstring covers your calf and your heel stays on the floor. Your back knee should be just above the floor. It might be hard to stabilize this, so you can use an object around you to help you make sure you control the motion the entire time since you're moving slowly. You're going to do this 6 times on each leg. For the Cossack squat, we're going to be entering a wide stance with our legs staggered. It seems similar to the archer squat. When you're doing this, you want to make sure that your torso rotates as you're lowering your body down, and make sure you're doing it slowly, the entire time controlled. You want to make sure your back stays flat and bring your hips low. If you want to open your hips even more, you can pivot on your ankle and rotate the toes up. If you can't sink that far down, it's also fine to just go as low as you can and still ease back up. You do this for 20 times in total, so 10 times on each side. Make sure that your back stays strong and it's not arched or weak. The next thing I'm going to do is a frog. For this, I put my knees on the floor and I keep 90-degree angles with my legs. It's okay if you can't bring your hips all the way to the floor. You can just hold up your body weight with your arms. If you want to sink even deeper, what you can do is a diamond frog, where you just bring your feet together, which opens your hips and allows you to sink even further down. If you're able to go all the way into a frog, something you can do are frog raises, where you raise your feet holding the frog position. For the pancake, we're going to be entering a seated floor straddle, and we want to make sure that we have an anterior pelvic tilt, which is essentially just arching your back. It's going to be harder to bring your chest down if your back's rounded, so you want to make sure it stays straight. What we're going to do here is we're going to keep our hands in front of us and slowly try to lean out as far as we can, and then ease back up. You can make this harder by having your legs wider and your arms further in front of you, or easier by having your feet closer and not going as far. I do this for 10 reps. The seated good morning is similar to the pancake, where we're leaning our torso forwards, but this time our hands are behind our ears. You will feel tension in your hamstrings when you do this. You make it harder by having your legs wider and leaning further, and you can make it easier by leaning less far forwards and your feet closer together. Do this for 10 reps. For the floating pancake, we're once again going to be in the straddle, making sure our back stays flat and leaning forwards. But this time, we're going to have our arms behind us and up with our palms facing down. You're going to hold this for a minute while leaning out as far as you can. Your quads will be flexed and straining during this. Just make sure it's uncomfortable discomfort and no sharp pains. I'm going to hold this for 1 minute. The next, I'm going to get against the wall to do a wall straddle. This, I put my butt close to the wall. It doesn't have to be touching. I'm going to have my feet straight up and just let gravity do its thing and pull my legs down. You can disregard the way your feet point. Let them sink or point up if they want to. And you're just going to relax in this position. After the wall split, now what we're going to do is we're going to lift our ankles off the wall slightly and make sure our knees stay straight. We're then going to lower our legs again as low as we can comfortably, easing into that max range of motion, and then tapping them back together at the top. We're going to do this 10 times. Now the final thing I do are vertical shins. For this, I'm going to put my knee about 6 inches from the wall. Make sure everything is straight, my torso is up and tall, and my hips are in line. I want to sink my weight forwards, and you can think of it like driving your quad towards your ankle. I just like to do a test run and see if that feels okay, and I can adjust afterwards. You can make it easier by having your knee further from the wall and your front foot closer to you, and you can make it harder by moving your front foot further away and your knee closer to the wall. You're going to hold this for a minute on each leg and make sure you ease into that max range of motion. If the pain is ever too much, you can always raise your body up back against the wall. An important thing to remember is to make sure your hips are closed, not open. You don't want to build any imbalances.